Hey everyone, just wanted to give you a quick heads up. The second Global Product Owner Summit is coming soon. You can get all the details at bit.ly/Product Owner 2024. That's bit.ly/Product Owner 2024. And it's all lowercase, all one word. Oh, and stick with us until the end of the episode to know the dates and the tracks that we have for you in this year's summit. But for now, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special bonus episode. And for this bonus episode on AI, artificial intelligence at work and how it can help us, we have João Moura. Hey, João, welcome to the show.
Hey there, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me to this. I think it's going to be an exciting episode, to say the least.
Absolutely. Exciting for me. I know we are going to talk about topics that you've been working on for quite a few years, so I might ask some simple questions, but they are really important for those of us on this side of the AI revolution, of course. So João is an accomplished engineering leader with 20 years experience in the software industry. And most interesting and how I got to meet João, he's also the author of CrewAI, an agent orchestrator for AI agents. And AI agents specifically, I think is one of the most exciting developments that has happened in the AI space, but we'll talk more about that in a second. He specializes also in leading diverse remote teams worldwide, fostering innovation and collaboration. He's passionate about diversity and inclusion, and João also shines as a writer and speaker at major tech conferences and also a guest of podcasts, because I know you've been doing a few podcasts lately, right, João?
Yes, right. Yeah, with like CrewAI kind of taking off and a lot of people starting using that, I had no other choice other than kind of like do a quote unquote roadshow. So having a lot of interest, like getting to meet all these interesting people and answering all those like hard questions sometimes at the spot. But it has been very interesting.
So let's dive into it right away. Tell us a bit more about yourself and how did you find yourself in the whole AI whirlwind?
100%. So, well, you kind of gave me a good intro. I started coding like pretty early when I was like a little kid at 12 years old. And I never stopped it since then. And AI was also something that I always picked up my interest in. I always tried to learn AI, but I always struggled with it. Felt like such a far reach, like a topic, like so much harder to understand than regular programming. So in 2017, I started to look into it and I decided to take a small course on all things AI. And that's when I like first learned about what would be like now classic AI, like regression model, classification models, and all that, and correlations and matrices and pandas and NumPy and all the good libraries that nowadays a lot of engineers are using in Python. So that's how I started with AI, and I never stopped since then as well. I did a few models while working at Clearbit, and then with OpenAI kind of taking the world by the storm with ChatGPT, I had no other choice other than kind of like start to implement things with LLMs, and that's it.
And of course, as I read in your bio, you also work with teams worldwide and have been exposed to many ideas. I'm sure many of them exciting, others perhaps not so much. What are some of the most surprising changes in technology when it comes to AI specifically that you've seen in these years?
Hmm. Well, I think like early, if you look at AI prior, like GPT takeoff, I think an interesting change was that you had ML engineers and people that would be doing AI, and then you had on the other side software engineers, people that were building applications. But these two layers didn't really talk to each other, right? Like it was rather exceptional for me to find like software engineers working closely to ML engineers other in companies that were like super geared towards AI. And honestly, that was a shame because that combination of those two kind of people working together creates such a rich environment for creativity and for building interesting things. So I think that was like one of the biggest changes that I don't think a lot of people are talking about with like ChatGPT. And that is not like those two groups are talking. and things are accelerating and they're building things together. And I think there's like magical things that are coming from that partnership.
We often talk about here on the podcast how cross-functionality in product teams is so important. And I think you just gave an example because the different knowledge and experience we bring to the conversation can really, as you called it, accelerate the way we understand the technology, the way we apply the technology. And definitely one of the things that got me excited and wanting to talk to you, of course, was one of those accelerations, the whole agent topic. But we'll talk about agents in a bit. Of course, this is also a podcast about work, not just software development, but also how to manage software development. And you've been managing teams for a while as well. You lead teams yourself. How do you think AI will change the way we look at work specifically in the software industry?
I think there's so many different answers to that question, honestly. There's like AI is kind of like it's quickly like penetrating the workplace in different ways to the point that I think that will change things like in different layers. So one example, like the most classic one, is people actually start to using AI on their day to day. Right now, like more people are kind of like embracing like ChatGPT and whatnot, but many still are not. And I think they're missing out big time. Like if you look at AI and the pace that things are evolving, like that genie is not getting back into the bottle. Like we don't know what our jobs will look like in 2 or 3 years. And I'm talking like not only software engineering, I'm talking like management, I'm talking about HR, I'm talking about all these different areas. We don't know what our jobs are going to look like in 2 years or 1 year. But what we do know is there is no way that AI won't be a big piece of that. So I would say that for people out there, they should be using these tools. The sooner, the better. The more familiar they get to it, the more used they get to using it, the better prepared they're going to be for what their jobs and their roles are going to look like moving forward. Because for me, it's clear that it's going to change how we collaborate, it's going to change how we work. And the people that are embracing it sooner are feeling it. They're feeling it the more. And I think yeah, I think they're going to be better prepared.
It feels a little bit like the internet change felt like in the early 90s, right? Like it was something so different from what you were expecting, and it gave you so much access, so much reach that you couldn't get before. That it was really, really hard to think about how things will change. But like today, nobody would imagine most knowledge work without the internet. And of course, programmers worldwide are on or were on Stack Exchange before, and that was because of the internet. And just the fact that Stack Exchange could be created was because there was an internet. It kind of became a pervasive, kind of something like the air, the oxygen around us, right? We don't even notice it, and it still has a huge impact. But for you as a leader, though, João, when you look at your work as a leader, leading teams, developing CrewAI, how do you think you will be taking advantage of AI as a technology, as an enabler, or something else in the near future?
Sure. Before I answer that, I want to touch on something that you said because I think it's so interesting. And yes, I think there's a comparison here to be drawn between like AI and the internet. The sense that like internet became this platform, right? Like internet became this platform where like all our life is happening on the internet to some sense. That's how you order food. That's how you meet people. That's how you interact. That's how you do your work. So like the internet nowadays is this platform, and I think AI will be the same, but much faster. Like AI is going to be the way that we're going to meet people. AI is going to be the way that we're going to like order things. AI is going to be the way that we are going to work. So I think AI will be another platform as big as like the internet, if not bigger. So yeah, I agree with you on that. For me as a leader, there was a few things early on that I think I need to make like I think I need to take some decisions, right? So you need as a leader to take the decision to embrace this. If you do, that's an unfair advantage for your teams, right? So like people dwelling on like, oh, should we not use Copilot? Should we use Copilot? Yes, of course you should use Copilot. Otherwise, your team is going to be missing out. People that are using Copilot out there are seeing like huge improvements on their performance. So if you're managing engineering team, choosing not to use Copilot is detrimental to your career, is detrimental to their careers, and is actually damaging your business. So I would say that for leaders out there, they need to be the ones kind of like brave enough to go out there, use these tools, and bring them into their corporations because they can be force multipliers. So for me as a leader, I think I need to set that standard. Like, yes, we're going to use AI, we're going to use AI tools, and we're expected to use that. I think there is another component to like how a leader could affect change through AI, and that is like embedding AI into products. That's another thing that a lot of people are doing and looking at. I about that one though, I think like that you need to be a little more conscious, right? It's not like just don't go for it. Think about like what would be the most useful, like similar to how you would develop any other features. You wouldn't just implement something for the sake of implementing something. So yeah, for that, I think it's more like classical like product management and product discovery, but you definitely should be bringing AI into your products.
So that let's dive into that, bringing AI into the products, because we have the product owner summit coming up, and one of the key aspects or key topics for the summit will be how can AI help us amplify our impact. We talked about how it can help us think as leaders, but also how do we bring it into the products. And in the bringing it into the products, there's a couple of things that are quite puzzling for me. And since you're inside the world, maybe you have some more insight into what is happening. So I've seen two major interfaces happening, right? The programmer interface, i.e. you call something and you get a response and somehow you treat that. It can be either a function call or some chat completion, whatever that may be. And then you have the chat interface, which is what is taking the world by storm right now. And Brave, the browser, is building that into the browser itself. We have it on our mobile phones. ChatGPT is there. How do you see the actual interface towards the use of AI? How do you see that happening? What do you think might be some trends emerging in the technology, how it's used and how we interface with it?
Yeah, 100%. So I think that I think you got a point. Right now, if you're going to interact with AI, what most people are thinking of are chats. That's the main thing. But then there's like automations. There's another big one, right? So when people thinking about digging into the product, you don't necessarily need to bring it like as something that the user will use. You can bring it as part of like data pipeline. You can bring it as part of data extraction. You can bring it about like you can do so much stuff with it, right? I think like a lot of companies are going for like the most common use cases where they're like, well, let's revamp customer support. That's a big one that I keep hearing from different companies. I want to revamp customer support using AI. So it's like it's a smarter chat, so it's easier to use and all that. But hey, with LLMs, you could do like data extraction in a way that you couldn't before, and a lot of business could like benefit from there. You could do reporting like you wouldn't do before, and a lot of business could use that as well. So I would say don't get too locked up by the fact that the way that people are interacting with these tools now is through text mostly and in chat base. But other than that, keep your minds open on like how can I use these tools to unlock things that weren't possible before. So one crazy example that I experimented with when GPT-4 Vision came out, we were like, all right, like now there's a Vision API. What can we do with it? So we immediately hosted a meeting to talk about all the crazy ideas on how we could use now Vision that we wouldn't be able to use before. And one of them was, can we take a screenshot of a website and then pass that through Vision to extract information about that website? And it turns out you can. And I think it was even cheaper than regular like text extraction by sending like the HTML content. So again, just one example to show like that you should very much be thinking about all these AI capabilities on how that unlocks use cases, how that unlocks customers, how that unlocks features that wouldn't be possible before.
Well, one of the things that is really interesting is the new category of products that is emerging. And I'm thinking now specifically for us who work with software development, with teams and leaders, and we need to bring change in, we need to interact with a lot of people. There's one which is really interesting for me, which is this character AI, which is a system where you can somehow configure or train a character to act in a certain way, and then you can use that in order to brainstorm. Like, for example, you're preparing a speech for your CEO and you need to have like somebody with that kind of mindset. You go to character AI, you use one, or you create one based on what you know about your CEO, and you get that kind of sparring from a very specific perspective. So that's a very interesting topic, that, or a very interesting use that I've seen out there. It's still chat as the UI, but it's a different use case for that chat. What are some other cool use cases you've seen, maybe even from people using CrewAI?
Yes. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of fine tuning in general. And I think like that unlocks way more way more use cases, because then you have like these models that are specifically great at doing what you need them to do. Whether that is to adhering to a given format, where there is to like extracting information in a certain way, and that allows you to deploy those models that are going to be very faster, they're going to be cheaper. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of fine tuning models. About like interesting use cases. I have been hearing some interesting using cases for agents in general, and I have been hearing a lot of great interesting use cases for data extraction as well, or around fine tuning. One example that I did myself that was very cool was this idea of having a group of agents that could write me a LinkedIn post. So writing a LinkedIn post has like a higher threshold, just because LinkedIn is like your professional life, so you can like just write anything as you would do on X or whatever. So it is hard and takes more time for you to write something that's kind of like good. And I didn't have the time to do it, but I have all these like rough ideas that I think would be great posts. I just don't have the time to actually format them in a nice way. So what I did is I created 4 agents to help me out with that, from like a senior content writer to a researcher, all the way to a chief content officer. And I would basically put in my rough idea in and tell them, I want to talk about this because I think this is a good angle on that, and yada, yada, yada. And then these agents would search the internet. They would look at like what other interesting people have been talking about this. They would do research on the topic. They would look at my resume. They would look at my work experiences, at my life experiences, out trying to find that angle where like how I can provide value on this topic that I want to talk about. And then they would write that out for me. And then there's a final step before giving me the output. I had a model that I fine-tuned on my content so that this model now sounds like me. So I basically translate whatever like is the end output in something that I would actually write. And of course, I don't just get that and post it. I still take my time editing and making sure that looks good and that it mentions everything that I wanted to. But that's the difference between never doing it and doing it like 4 times a week, and spending just like 5 minutes with it. Um,
One thing that I find very powerful is this concept of fine tuning, and I know you've been doing it. You just said so. So can you give us like the 30-second description of fine tuning for those of us who don't yet know what that is?
100, yeah, sure. So fine tuning would be the ability to. I'll give you a last technical explanation. So fine tuning is the ability for you to teach something to an LLM. So let's say that you have like a model like GPT that you send the text in, they give you text out. What fine tuning would enable you to do is to show it examples of, for an input, what output do you expect? So for a text that you send, what you'd expect to hear back. And if you show it enough examples, it's going to pick up the patterns there between what you're sending and what you expect. And this model, it's going to become a specialist on behaving like that. So it's basically like retraining or just adjusting or teaching or again fine tuning this model to behave in a certain way by giving it enough examples of how it should behave.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great example is what you said, right? Like you write a bunch of posts, then you give it to the LLM through a fine-tuning process, and then what you get is an LLM model that is kind of optimized to write like you would write.
Exactly. So for that, what I did was I basically downloaded a bunch of my tweets. And so I basically had what I would say. Then I run those through GPT and asked it to convert each one of those tweets into something that GPT would say. So you get that regular like AI feeling version of it. Now I can train this model on me saying, hey, translate what GPT said into what I would say, and then I can show what I would say. So this is the examples that I would give to the point that after like I have fine-tuned it, I can send it like something new and say, like, hey, now convert this as well at something that I would say, and it would do an excellent job at that.
Absolutely. And of course, this is about communicating, and a very simple thing to do would be to train a model to add certain characteristics to the text, right? Like if you need to, for example, send weekly emails, it's a very simple thing to do. Well, simple, it takes time and takes some knowledge, but once you have it, you could train it to take whatever rough notes you have from the week and kind of summarize them and create an interesting and appealing email out of that, which also gets more, it's read more likely by the people that you send it to. Now, another aspect that you have been working on personally, this CrewAI library and the whole concept of agents and even swarms of agents, meaning several agents working together in some orchestrated way, can also directly affect our work. You gave the example of the LinkedIn post writing AI agent crew. But if you think about work, right, like, leadership aspects of work, collaboration aspects of work, what do you see can emerge once we have this technology more available through libraries like CrewAI?
Well, I think, so I'm not sure if everyone likes the name AI agent, and it's not like it. I don't know if the name kind of throws people off and they don't understand what this means. Forget about the name AI agent for a second and think about this as autonomous AI automations, right? So if you think about automations that you would have in the past, and those would be like, well, every Monday at 9 a.m. do something, or they would be every time that you get a text, forward this to that email. These are regular automations. Now you think about what you can do with ChatGPT, where like you go to it and you chat with it, and it creates new things, and it can give you suggestions, and it can say it no do that and no do that. Uh, Now you basically merge those two together. That unlocks a new level of automation that wouldn't be possible otherwise because of two things. The first one is the ability to actually generate content, right? So now your automation, you can make part of your automation writing an email. You can make part of your automation write a response. You can make part of automation creating something. But then the other part is that you can use cognition because these models like can quote unquote reason because of their understanding of the language. You can ask them like, hey, should it do X or should it do Y? And it's going to react in runtime and do one or the other. So that unlocks automations that wouldn't be possible in the past. So I would say for people like that, if AI agents kind of like make it hard for them to understand, think about this as the next step of automations on steroids. And that is going to happen no matter what. So I'm a strong believer that in the future, we are going to have this mixed workforces where you're going to have people and agents, and you're going to have full departments being run from like by agents. And I think that's going to be a usual thing. And those agents are going to be able to help us in so many different ways and automate so different things in a way that it had been possible until then.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the thing that really struck me when I read and played around with CrewAI was exactly something that you also said in one of your videos, that people need to stop thinking of applying human models to AI, but rather start thinking of applying programming or automation models to AI, right? And a very simple thing, like an example I came up with is, of course, the LinkedIn post being one example. Another example is to write show notes for this podcast, right? Like it's very easy for me to give a bunch of notes that I take while we are recording and get it to tell me what are the key points and then build a text based on that. And for me, the key aspect is that, but there are also other things that one agent, in this case, one automation, may not be good at, because another automation may be much better at creating images, right? Like Midjourney is much better than ChatGPT at creating images. So maybe we want the text from ChatGPT and the image from Midjourney, or maybe we want an animated video from some other AI service. And I think that really helps us to take it to the next level. And as you say, it's like automation on steroids, but it's automation that makes decisions on its own, which makes it completely different from something that you would need to somehow, predict all possible states and somehow build that into automation. You can just give it the direction, and of course, giving it guardrails and specific tools, but you can give it the direction, and with those tools, it can then accomplish that task, or that complex or complicated task, as it were.
Yeah.
When you think about CrewAI now, thinking about the library that you have been developing, where do you see it going next?
So I think CrewAI kind of struck a nerve because I saw a lot of people like the thing kind of took life on its own. A lot of people started using it. And I think there's a few reasons why people like it so much. And I think it's because I came into it with a first principles approach. And it's a very opinionated approach on how to run AI agents that I think people just like it. So you're right. Like a few things that I have been noticing on all my experiments, and there are many papers around all this as well, is that one single agent to do it all just not gonna cut it, right? We don't have AGI yet, so that's gonna that doesn't help. Very specific agents though work way better. And you have great examples out of that. There are whole papers around it. Like ChatDev, like is another great example that people could go out there and try. And that is basically like multiple agents working together. The other thing is role playing. So role playing with agents also makes like them way better at something. And I would say like people can even try this out with regular ChatGPT if they want to. They just need to go in ChatGPT and instead of just asking for something, start by setting up some context, saying like, "Hey, you are a senior software engineer, expert in Python and SQL databases, and yada yada yada," and then you can start asking questions, and you're gonna have way better answers than what if you just had like not prompted that way. So role playing is another big aspect of it. So that said, like there were like these are just like two examples, but there's way more into the library. There's a caching layer. There's so much like around guardrails, around like forcing agents, around making sure that they don't hit like rabbit rows and all that. But I think like that those are some of the things that kind of like draws people into it, where like it makes sense to like create agents this way and people like embrace it more easily. Now, you asked me about next steps. I think next steps now is because it hit a nerve, there's definitely a business need there. Like there are companies that are using this now. There are companies that are reaching out to me and say like, "Hey, AI is great. I want to use this. We actually have people like creating automations on it. Can we do this? Can we do that?" So I think there's a business need that I would love to understand more and build around. So yeah, the library is amazing. You're gonna keep being open source. We're gonna keep working on that. We're about to launch a new version probably sometime this week or the next. We are working on UI for no code and a bunch of interesting things. But I'm also paying attention to enterprise needs and what they look like. And I think that's gonna be very fun to explore.
And let's do a bit of futurism coming, talking about exploration, but let's dive that or focus that lens on us, software developers.
Yeah.
What do you think will change in the way we develop products and software thanks to the changes that the AI and technologies around AI are introducing?
So that's a hard question. I think everyone in the industry probably watched it, like Matthew Berman's video on like programming is dead. And there's also like other like there has been talks on it. Uh I think that's somewhat of a hot take. I don't know if everyone would agree, but it's clear to me that AIs are getting very good at programming and AIs are getting very good at understanding. And this is the worst that they will ever be. They won't get worse in the future, right? So it's not unreal to think that if they are gonna keep getting better, unless we reach major roadblocks, that there's gonna get to a point where AIs are gonna be able to program as as good or even better than most programmers would. So I think it's gonna be a very interesting future for software engineers because if AI can program full apps, then what is left for us to do? Maybe we program AIs. Maybe we just steer these AIs in the right way or one way or another. So again, I think like we have for people that get anxious about all this, right? And I recognize that that's something that might create anxiety for some people. I would say we have very low control over our lives. Like if you really think about it, we have very control over what happens to us. We like to believe otherwise, but we can do everything that is to our power. Like we can exercise, we can eat health, we can wake up early, we can like do our like things that we want to do. But honestly, like there's a whole world around that, all around ourselves of probabilities that we don't have control of. So I would say focus on the things that you can control. So if you can learn AI, learn it. If you can use AI, use it. You're definitely not gonna be worse um, by doing that. That is sad. I don't know what the future is gonna reserve us, but yeah, I think that's kind of my hot take on it.
I think that's, from my perspective, I think that there's no point in trying to avoid looking into the future, even though
Yeah.
it does and may create anxiety. So, listening to podcasts like this and talking to friends about it might be a good way to tackle that anxiety, to feel it and understand it, but then move forward, because that's what we need to do. One thing that has come to my mind, and I myself, I'm advising my own son who's a programmer and he's starting his career, and I'm of course seeing this, and I'm thinking, okay, what could I tell him that would be maybe useful for him? And one of the things that I've thought about is that as long as you know the whole technology stack, there's going to be gaps in AI development for a long time. There's going to be things it will be very good at. There will be things where it is kind of sufferable, kind of okay-ish, but not really good. And then there will be things where it doesn't even touch. It's not able to, at least until sometime in the future, if not even longer. So what I'm thinking is that betting on being a generalist with some specialization, where you use AI to complement where you're not a specialist, I think that could be a good strategy. But I don't know, what do you think, João?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think people call that the T strategy, where you have like you know a lot about many different topics, and there's a few topics that you go like really, really deep upon. I think that is a good strategy. If I had a child, I would say there's nothing to lose on learning how to program. Nothing. If anything, it's going to be helpful still. And for a foreseeable future, there might be a world where like English will be the main programming language where like all people need to do is just write English. But I don't think there is anything to lose on learning how these things work. Like even if you look at the market right now, right, we can draw some like analogies with existing tech. For example, you can be a software engineer and not know anything about DevOps. because right now it's so easy to deploy stuff. You can use Heroku, you can use Render, you choose it. You don't need to worry like what a server is, what how exactly the HTTP protocol works, or what is a load balancer. You don't need to think about that. But if you do know about it, that opens up a lot of doors. And there are companies out there that need that kind of knowledge. They need to like have very specific setups, and they need some people to understand how this works end to end. So I would say that yes, like even if it gets into a world where programming is not necessarily, I think it makes sense what you said, where there's still going to be valuable on knowing some of this, the same way that it's still valuable to know how DevOps works, even though you have automations around it.
And also, at least for now, AI doesn't have a drive. It does not want to do anything. So somebody needs to tell it what it wants to do.
Exactly, exactly. A lot of those, like you still need to program them, right? I think that's the easy part. That's the fun part. Not easy. That's the fun part. Um, yeah, I think like I mentioned this and you touched into this before as well. I think what is interesting about AI is that eh, I think people, it behaves, quote unquote, it behaves like human because it writes like human and sounds like human. But at the end of the day, it's not human. And I think that's what makes it exciting. It's like I think like the parallel that I draw in one of my videos were that if you try to make an AI to behave like a human, would be like you make an airplane that flaps its wings. Just because that's how you observe like things working in nature doesn't mean that you want your systems to behave the same way. So in like for agents, for example, that would mean that, oh, I want to create an automation. So I need to create a CEO, I need to create a manager, I need to create specific people. No, you're trying to shape the systems around like human behavior. And that's good to some extent, the same way that a plane still has wings. But then you want to put like some jet engines so it fly faster than a bird would ever do. And what that means for AI, that means that you don't need necessarily to have like the whole organization structure. You can do shortcuts, you can cut things short. That means that you can code, you can still like write these tools. There's still value in having code as part of these automations. So yeah, I think in the future there's still going to be need for programmers in one way or another, at least in the foreseeable future. Once that we hit AGI, then I don't make any promises.
Of course, the metaphor of the plane is actually quite apt because in the beginning we did try to build airplanes that flapped their wings. That is the thing. We really did try that. All right, João, we're getting close to the end, but before we go, if there's one resource, could be a book, a video, an article that would help people understand this topic better, and you could recommend to us, what would that be?
That's hard. A lot of the way that I learn is less about necessarily reading about it, and it's more about messing with it. So yes, I stumble about like, oh, there's good posts, and I could vouch for some of them. But I usually don't even read them all. So my main advice for people would be like go out and try it. There are people that are learning better that way, and there are people that don't. For the people that do, like myself, I would say that don't sleep on it. It's very hard. The same way that in real world, like inertia requires extra force for you to actually start moving than for you to keep moving. I would say that's real for learning something as well. So it always feels harder go from 0 to 1 than then to keep moving from 1 to 2 to 3 and move forward. So I say go over that initial inertia phase, push it through, and start to playing with it. For some people, they might be dwelling on like, oh, I want to code something with it, but I don't know. Just do it. Just do something. For some people, might be, oh, fine tuning, but that sounds too complex. Uh, Honestly, like it's not that complex. Like just do it. There's like a lot of great tools out there. There's Auto Train. There's like other tools if you want to get more technical with it. So I would say, and even GPT has a UI for fine tuning if you want to tap into that. But I would say go out there and start messing with it, break things. Your computer won't explode. Don't think about it too much. Just do things, and you're gonna get going.
Absolutely. So, João, finally, about you, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
I would say that the main place would be X. My handle in X is JOAOMDMOURA. So that would be probably the easiest way to tag along. I usually post daily about everything that has going on in my life and in agents and in AI. So you might want to do that. I also do some LinkedIn. Nowadays, not so much because I'm a little bit busy, but I might come back to it in the next few weeks. So that might be another way to kind of like catch up for me as well. But yeah, I think that would be mainly it.
Thank you very much, João, for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Thank you so much. It was great to having me. For people out there that haven't tried CrewAI yet, I would say check CrewAI, go into crewai.io, and you're gonna learn all about it.
Absolutely. We'll put the link to that on the show notes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Hi there, Agile friends. Thank you for sticking around and listening to the details of the Product Owner Summit, this year's global summit dedicated to a critical Scrum role, the Product Owner role, of course. We'll have some amazing keynotes and 4 tracks filled with first-hand stories and experiences for product owners to learn more about that critical Scrum role. The summit will take place between April 23rd and 25th, so book your calendars. There will be loads of sessions for you to attend. One of the keynotes will be Dave West, the product owner and CEO at Scrum.org, one of the largest Scrum organizations in the world. If you want to know more, check out the details at bit.ly/product owner 2024. That's all one word, all lowercase, bit.ly/product owner 2024. We will also have 4 tracks. The 4 tracks will cover cross-functional product ownership. That's track 1. As Pixar's Ratatouille said, not every idea can be a great idea, but a great idea can come from anywhere. And this quote emphasizes the importance of a product owner being open to all ideas, regardless of the source, and also challenges us to focus on getting good ideas from everywhere and involving the whole team in the product owner role and responsibilities. The second track is Designing Products for Growth, where we explore how to craft products ready for scalable growth, merging practical strategies with innovation. The idea here is to learn to design products for growth, whether it is sales or customer acquisition. The third track is Know Your Users, user-centric approaches for agile development. In this track, we learn to master user-centric techniques in agile development, to deeply understand customer needs and transform insights into meaningful UX designs that focus on engagement and satisfaction. This is a track ideal for innovation-focused agile teams. And the fourth track, one of the most exciting tracks in my opinion, is product development with AI, ideas for product owners. Not only do we discuss about using AI in the products, but also AI for product owners to learn to make a bigger impact with the help of the AI tools that we already have. The Product Owner Summit will also present to you great opportunities to network with your peers. So get your ticket and join our Slack. You can get the ticket and join the Slack at bit.ly/product owner 2024. As always, we have free tickets and also the paid tickets that help to support this podcast. So check them out at bit.ly/product owner 2024. That's all lowercase, all one word, product owner 2024. I'll see you in the summit floor.